The loading phase is the most debated aspect of creatine supplementation, and it's also one of the most misunderstood. Some people swear by it, others say it's unnecessary. Both groups are technically correct, but for different definitions of necessary. Here's the actual science. When you start creatine supplementation, your muscles are sitting somewhere between 60 and 80% of their maximum creatine storage capacity in most cases. The loading protocol, typically 20 grams per day, divided into 4 doses of 5 grams each, sustained for 5 to 7 days, saturates those stores to their maximum in approximately 1 week. At that point, you shift to a maintenance dose of 3 to 5 grams per day to replace the 1 to 2% of your total creatine pool that converts to creatinine and is excreted daily. The non-loading approach, taking 3 to 5 grams per day from the start, reaches the same saturation endpoint. The difference is timeline, 3 to 4 weeks instead of 1. The end state of your muscles, fully saturated, is identical. The loading phase is an acceleration, not a separate protocol. So, when is loading actually useful? For athletes with an imminent competition, event, or training block who want to be fully saturated as quickly as possible, loading is the right choice. If you have a major competition in 2 weeks and you're starting creatine today, a 5 to 7 day loading phase gets you to full saturation before the event. Without loading, you'd be at roughly 50% of your saturation potential at that same point. For someone supplementing for general long-term performance improvement with no immediate deadline, loading is unnecessary. 3 to 5 grams per day, taken consistently, gets you to the same place, just over weeks rather than days. The cost of loading is gastrointestinal discomfort. Nausea, cramping, bloating, and loose stools are common side effects of 20-gram loading protocols, particularly in individuals with sensitive digestive systems. These effects are dose-dependent. Taking the 20 grams in 4 to 5 smaller doses across the day, each with food and adequate water, substantially reduces but doesn't eliminate the GI risk. Some individuals tolerate loading without any issues. Others find it genuinely unpleasant enough to affect adherence. And a loading protocol you abandon halfway through is less useful than a standard dose protocol you maintain for months. There's a third option that some protocols use: a moderate loading dose of around 10 grams per day for 10 to 14 days. This reaches full saturation in about 2 weeks rather than 1, with substantially less GI stress than the 20-gram protocol. For individuals who want to accelerate saturation without the full 20-gram discomfort, the 10-gram approach is a reasonable middle ground. One thing loading doesn't do: it doesn't raise your creatine stores above the natural ceiling. Taking 40 grams per day doesn't produce a 40% larger reservoir than 20 grams per day. Your muscles have a fixed maximum, and anything beyond what fills that maximum is excreted. This is also why the creatine brands that market ultra-loading protocols with 30 grams or more per day are not offering any physiological advantage. They're generating more creatinine excretion and additional GI stress, not higher muscle saturation. The summary: load if you have a time-sensitive reason to. Skip the loading phase if you don't. Either way, the maintenance dose is 3 to 5 grams per day, indefinitely, and the destination is the same. The research comparing loading versus non-loading protocols is actually quite consistent on one point that often gets lost in the debate. Training during the loading period does not meaningfully accelerate saturation beyond what supplementation alone produces. Some early hypotheses suggested that exercise-induced increases in creatine transporter activity during hard training might speed up loading. The evidence doesn't strongly support this. Your muscles fill with creatine based on dose and time. Whether you're training hard or resting, the transporter upregulation from exercise contributes, but it's not the primary rate-limiting factor. This is practically relevant because it means you don't need to train during a loading week for loading to work. Injured, sick, or transitioning athletes starting creatine before resuming training can load effectively without active exercise. One aspect of loading that's less often discussed: the water weight increase comes faster with loading than with the standard dose. Loading drives creatine into muscles rapidly, and the osmotic water retention follows quickly. Typically 1 to 2 kilograms gained within the first week of loading.